The red tide. First, we want to discuss what is the red tide exactly. The red tide is an event, and it happens with algae when it grows out of control, and it's been linked to a huge impact on marine and human life. You can see we have a picture here. It's not always red, it can be different colors as well, like brown or dark. We have a timeline here that begins with the start of the red tide when it started being recorded. The earliest recording is back in the 16th century when a Spanish explorer noted some red seas that resulted in some birds dying. In 1844, it was the first scientifically documented incident of the red tide along the Gulf in Florida. And in 1878, the red tide episodes began in Florida and continued on for 10 years. 2 years later, there was a large note of bird mortality, and a connection formed between that and the red tide. 4 years later, after that, the red tide infected some shellfish from Florida, and it made a human sick for the first time. So humans are now becoming sick because of the red tide. In 1947, a ton of rain happened in the Panhandle in Florida, and a big red tide episode happened along Florida's Gulf for almost an entire year. From all of these different events, they started correlating between this and the death of some animals, such as the birds. And then in 1947, they noted that all that rain caused a big flare-up, and it killed all these sponge beds. And it took a huge toll on commercial fishing in that area. The episodes continued to come and go and started spreading, and a lot of manatees started dying, 10% of the population. And by 2003, it wasn't even just humans, it was also dogs that were starting to get sick as well. The cases continued to spread all around the world, through the North Sea, Hong Kong, New England, everywhere. So people started researching how to fix it. And there's a couple of ideas that were thrown out there, but none that seemed sustainable, so research continued. Overall, the environment changed in color, the organism type, and created toxicity to both marine and human life. These effects that started local are now global. For humans, there was sickness, illness in pets, there was political unrest, nobody knew how to fix it, so much money went into it, and a big concern was the areas that had to shut down for places that needed it for economy, like seafood and stuff. They had to start importing it. The biosphere was involved because of the lives it impacted marine and human, the atmosphere as some solution explanations as runoff, fertilizers, etc., and the hydrosphere, of course, which is where the algae is. And according to the source, some human activities can increase it, like we're talking about farming, factories, etc. And people all around were affected, but in the beginning it was especially Floridans with the manatee and impacted economy, but nowadays global. In this case study, it exemplified interactions between marine life and human social life by bringing to light some important concerns and creating research committees and forcing them to communicate with each other to face this. It seemed to have a positive feedback loop because humans kept having factories, kept having research, kept having all these activities going on that ended up running off into the ocean, which made more red algae. And here are the sources that I used. I also listed them under each slide, and that is the red tide.